It's right there.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, everybody. Well, welcome to our Synergy Community Script conversation. We titled it Scripts, but the reality is it's about coming up with a kind of a tried and true proven way to move people forward in their decision making. And why do we title it Script Practice, Script Training? Because typically, as salespeople, when we are off script, we are usually talking too much. And so the value of learning scripts is to learn how to keep yourself focused in a conversation and to make sure that the conversation is about them and not about you. So I see most people are off camera. So I'm curious if people are in a place that they could pop on their camera so I can kind of get an idea of who was here before on our last session last month. If you are, please put up a hand, or if you could flag yourself, you can do the raise hand on the icon. Okay, Cody, good. All right, so Cody was here. That's good. That's wonderful. Anybody else? Bueller? Dave was here. Good. Thank you, Dave, for coming off your headshot there. It looks like oh man, that looks like a poster for GQ right there. Look at that smile. So,
hey guys, if you're on the call,
you're a realtor when you're talking with the mute on in Zoom. So
if you're on the call and you can come on to the video, do it. It's for a much better experience for all of us. And you're all beautiful people, so we want to see.
Yeah, I'm not worried about your background, so don't worry about that. So interestingly enough, on last month's, is there anybody else that was here last month? Okay. So last month when we had this event, one of the things that I put out to the group was to talk about if you're having a challenge or you need assistance on creating a script that you feel comfortable with, to contact me. And we did have one gentleman come out and sit down with me and work through. He wanted to approach for sale by owners. And so we took the time to build through that model for him on what would make him most comfortable in communicating with for sale by owners. So I'm going to start with that offer again. It's not just for sale by owners. Is what we're going to cover today. Certain aspects of it that you are going to feel good, like, hey, I can assimilate that. And other aspects what we're going to discuss are going to be a little bit of a challenge or a little uncomfortable. And please know that I'm more than happy to work you through it. So please just communicate so we can help you. All right, the first thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about this question and answer period. When we talk about scripts, really scripts are designed to keep you about asking questions. When we ask questions, we are in control. That's not about being a control freak, but by asking questions, you actually get to find out what's important to the prospect. Now, I know anybody that's hearing this right now is not going, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. And not the intention behind that. But what I want to be clear is most of the time we make statements. Most of the time we're sharing our thoughts and our opinions. And quite often, most of the time, we're making it about us. I've heard it said a long time ago, but God was a brilliant engineer. He gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth. And we've got to learn how to use them in that proportion. We should be listening twice as much as we're speaking. So a typical script is going to be something that you're going to have a very natural conversation to find out information about whether somebody's buying or selling or investing. And at the end of the day, it's our job to get to what's driving them to do this. Without knowing what's driving, we're really just in a place of hope. And so one of the things that anybody that's ever been around me for any period of time will know, when they start telling me, oh, I've got a buyer lead or I got a seller lead, and Dave Reicher can confirm this, because my number one question after that is, why are they doing it? Why are they buying? Why are they selling? And if you don't know the answer to that, you're doing yourself and you're doing them a disservice. And so we talk about this process of peeling the onion, which is we get to the center of what's actually driving someone to make a move. There is a time in the marketplace, and we'll go back just a few months ago, third and fourth quarter, inventory was up. We started the year with less than a 1 month supply. It climbed to over 4 months supply. And at one point, there was over 8,000 available listings for sale. And there were agents who were struggling to get properties sold. And I would hear them call me. I've worked with them in the past, or we've done deals, or they were bringing me an offer on one of my listings. And they would make comments like, man, I see all your listings selling. How do you do that? So does anybody know the secret to how you get your listings sold? By the way, it's the same secret to how you get your buyers to buy. You can come off mute. Throw me your answers. What are your thoughts?
Educating.
Okay. Part of it.
Motivation.
Thank you, Michael. So let's go back to the why. Mike, somebody's getting a reverb. Okay, we're good. Every one of my clients have a definite reason for doing something. I was told earlier in my career by Mike Ferry, maybe prospects don't pay definite bills. So a lot of agents will have 10, 15. I've had agents tell me they have 80 leads. And as some of you may know, I was a coach for many years. I was a coach for Mike Ferry for several years. I helped Tom Ferry launch his coaching company. I was his director of coaching. I was selling 80 homes a year here. And then every other week I was flying to Newport Beach to help him run his company by overseeing 50 coaches. And the number one thing that I would hear from people is, I've got a ton of leads, but I'm struggling converting. And I said, no. You have a ton of fantasies covering up 3 or 4 great leads. When you have a lot of people who are unqualified and unmotivated, they're getting in the way of the people who are going to buy this weekend or going to sell immediately. Does that make sense? So we talk about this concept on scripts. The scripts is getting to the why without seeming rude or intrusive. Okay. If you're taking notes, I want you to write down this little pattern of sequence, and you have to learn how to master it. So the first thing you're going to do is you write down the word repeat. And the second word after that, it used to be approve. But what I want you to do is I really want you to acknowledge or confirm what you've heard. Approval is the way it's been thrown around for a long time. Repeat and approve, repeat and approve. Now, there's a lot of things that I'm not going to approve on. So in my mind, I said, no, you know what? I'm really just acknowledging, I'm just confirming that I heard what they said. Why do we want to use that pattern? Again, this is open discussion.
Well, so they know that you understood what they said, first of all.
Yep.
That you're listening, you're paying attention.
Yep. 90% of the people in their lives are not listening to what they say ever. Most people's reaction in a conversation is somebody shares something, the other person shares their opinion right behind it. Somebody said, and my favorite one to do is if somebody says, I'm going to Colorado, and maybe you had a great experience in Colorado, you had family there, maybe you went on a great vacation there. You hear Colorado and you immediately go, Colorado, oh my gosh, I love Colorado. Oh, that place is the best. I took my family skiing there in early 2000s. We were in Aspen. It was great. We took a little horse-drawn buggy and it was snowing then. Oh, it was great. Okay, what do you know about them buying or selling? Nothing. In fact, they're like, I don't fucking care about that. I'm here to talk to you about selling a home. Now, they're not saying that consciously, but subconsciously, they know they shared Colorado and you steamrolled it. So what I want you to get in the habit of doing is you repeat back. Now, they might say a long answer as to why they're going. They might say, well, I'm moving down to San Diego because, my daughter and her husband, I mean, they are working all the time, and, you know, he's got a promotion coming up, so he's working like 20 hours a day, and, you know, and then, you know, the grandkids, they got to get run to music class and sports, and, you know, and then somebody's got to make dinner, right? That's a long answer. And you go, okay, grandkids, good for you, right? You want to laser it in and acknowledge it. So one of the reasons that you acknowledge what you've heard is that psychologically they're building a profile on you. And on this profile, and we do it all the time. I know the woke culture and around the world, we're like, we're not supposed to judge. Sorry, that is DNA hardwired for survival, right? That's the reality. Come to my house. If you're a guy, have a hat on and sunglasses and try and come in my house. My German Shepherd will kick your ass because he cannot read you, right? He's on defense. The same thing happens in the human context. While they're meeting with you, they're assessing a file. And what they're doing is safe or unsafe, or trust or don't trust. When you're acknowledging what they're saying, guess what? They start to feel more comfortable with you. They start to think, oh, wow, this person really likes me. Now, what I've heard, and I've heard a few people here around my office when they're prospecting, they're doing the repeat and they're doing the acknowledgement or confirm, but I'm going to tell you straight up, you're going through the motions. You're saying the words, but you're not connected emotionally with it. What does that mean? That means when somebody asks them like, so how you doing? They go, fine, fine, excellent. Fine, good for you. What? That's that you're out of context. There's a disconnect there. If you're truly tuned in, you'll say, fine, I've been there. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes that's challenging. Let me ask you right now. So that's a real connection. That's a real conversation. Now you go to your next question. So let me ask you, I just sold a home around the corner from you. We know when one home sells, two more are going to sell right away. I was just wondering, when do you plan on moving? Or are you going to be one of the next two that sell? You're going to have to drag me out of here in a pine box. Great. I can appreciate that. I have a lot of clients that love the neighborhood they're in. Just out of curiosity, how's your health? No, I'm kidding. No, seriously, right? Be you, be fun, be engaging. If you're not entertaining, guess what? They're off the phone. I'm relatively harsh. And Fernando, I saw you a minute ago. You still here? I know Michael was in the room when I took that call. You guys were here earlier today.
I'm here. Yeah. Yeah.
So you saw me answer that call. It was a cold call. You saw me get off that phone very quickly, right? And you guys were like, oh man, that was harsh. Blah, blah, blah. That person sucked on their scripts, which is why I got off the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
They were like, hi. It was awkward, very out of pace, right? Like I was like, all right, this is a new salesperson. Somehow my name came up on their database and I'm the sucker that answered the phone, right?
Yeah.
You can take that same exact lead and get a great conversation at it and convert it to business. If you know your scripts, if you can come on the call and and you can display that you're competent. Because people are deciding right then and there. I've got a few seconds. How many people have watched any TikTok videos? Don't tell me I'm the only one, right? You make a decision in the first few seconds of any video when you're scrolling on social media, like, do I want to look at this any longer or not? That's judgment. And when you're on the phone or you're meeting with somebody in person or you're outdoor knocking or somebody's inquiring on one of your listings, if you don't have your scripts tight, they're moving on. You're done. They're going to brush off of you, even if they're motivated. Unless you're the only thing standing between them and that house. So you have to dial this in. So when I said before, I'm hearing a disconnect on people's response, their repeat, and their confirmation or approval language or acknowledgement language, they have to match. If somebody has a long pause or a sigh, well, I'm doing good. I can tell you right now, people do not do a long sigh or a pause or a heavy exhale, even if they say they're doing good. Because if I hear that, my response is going to do the same thing. I'm just going to take a deep exhale and I'll say, yep, I've been there too. I hope you're doing the best you can. Right? Because sometimes here's the deal, guys. We contact people in life changes. A lot of our buyers, a lot of our sellers are coming to us when there's something else going on in their lives. And if you cannot pick up the difference between somebody who's present and somebody that's dealing with something, you're never going to win, or you're going to win very rarely. The other thing that knowing your scripts allows you to do is, because you know what you're going to say, you can immediately clue in on the personality type. And when you connect on a personality type, you speak to them differently. Call a driver, which I am, and try and have a long opening dialogue and see if that's a success for you. If somebody answers the phone, and this is how I answer the phone, this is Joe. It's kind of a tell. Amiables don't answer the phone that way. Right? Promoters are like, hello. It's always very fun. Call Shannon. Shannon's like, hey. She's always at a party. I mean, wherever she is, it's fun. And so if you call her and you do my greeting, there's an immediate disconnect. And her filter is up like, I don't know this person. We're out of alignment. So when you know your script, just listed, just sold. I'm going to take those as a simple example. We're going to do the just sold. You know, I'm calling for, and I'll use Cody as a role play. Please unmute.
Fire away.
Now I have no script in front of me, guys. Happy to turn the camera around. You can see it. This is all just from years of practicing and internalizing. So ring, ring.
Hello, this is Cody.
Hey, Cody. Or yeah, you said, hey, this is Cody. Most people don't identify themselves. So just give me a hello. Sorry.
Hello,
Hi, I'm looking for Cody.
this is Cody.
Hey, Cody, this is Joe. I'm a local real estate agent. We just sold a home in your neighborhood, and we know when one home sells, usually two more sell right away. So I was just calling to see if you're going to be one of those other two.
I don't think so. We're pretty happy in our home.
Oh, great to hear it. So you really like the neighborhood. That's awesome. Let me ask you, how long have you lived at this address?
About 5 years.
5 years. That's quite a while. And where did you move from?
Just another house from the other side of town in Las Vegas.
Okay, so you've been in town a while. You just moved over to here. And how
Yeah.
did you happen to choose this area?
Well, we really like the area because the traffic's a little lower. The houses were what we were looking for, but they weren't as expensive as the ones in Summerlin or Green Valley Ranch. And so it was just like, we felt like we were getting good value.
Totally. You know, that's probably the number one thing I hear about people in this neighborhood is the dollar goes a little further. So let me ask you, if you were to move, where would you go next?
Well, I probably wouldn't move until my kids are moved out because this house is serving us really good right now. And, you know, barring some unforeseen thing, it's going to probably be good for us for 3, 4, 5 years.
That's awesome, Cody. I'm glad you, not only do you have a great home, you're in a great neighborhood. By the way, do you know anybody in the neighborhood that's been talking about potentially selling? Because we still have buyers looking.
Actually heard about somebody on the street over from me. Unfortunately, their spouse passed away, and now
Ooh.
she's mentioned to a few of our neighbors that she probably doesn't need that big of a house anymore.
Oh, that's terrible. Well, I'm going to be out in the neighborhood later this week, and obviously I'll keep this information confidential. Would you mind sharing me with the address? I'd like to send her a condolences card.
Sure.
Boom. Now we're moving on. So what I want you guys to get, like I haven't made just listed, just sold calls in forever. Thank you, Dave. It's conversational. In the beginning, here's what I'm hearing a lot of you doing. Hi, I'm calling for Cody. Now, hi, Cody. This is Joe. I'm a realtor with XYZ Realty, right? How are you doing today?
That's when I go, I'm doing great.
Yeah, like, you know, all right, we're heading down the wrong road here. Like, how many people say to you, I'm having the shittiest day I've ever had in my life? People say the same thing. I'm great, fine, good. In other words, get to the point. If you call and get to the point, you have a chance. So one of the things we talked about last month is calling a for sale by owner. For sale by owner answers the call, hoping it's a buyer. It never is, right? They run their ad thinking buyers are going to call. Silly them. They didn't realize all they were doing was running an ad for realtors to call. By about 2-3 hours into their ad being online or wherever, they're already over real estate agents calling. And so you've got to be very quick to get their attention and move forward so that you can actually get into the dialogue. So I would call and say, I'm calling about the home for sale. And they would say, yes. I would say, you sound like the owner, right? And I'm going to get oh no, it's my son's property. I'm just helping him with it, right? Or I'll get a yes, right? So whenever I get confirmed that I know who I'm talking to, I'll say, great. This is Joe. I'm a local real estate agent, and I know you're getting more calls from real estate agents than you care to, so I promise I'll keep this short, okay? I never asked him how he was doing. I don't care. He doesn't care to tell me. I don't pause. I identify myself. What you're doing right now, a lot of you are going, hey, this is Joe. I'm a local real estate agent. And you take a breath. No, you take a breath before you start so that you have enough to finish the conversation, finish that intro. And you got to get to the point. This will get you into a better conversation. How many people, if I said, I know you're selling I see you're selling your home on your own. I'm a local real estate agent, and I know you're getting more calls from realtors than you care to, so I promise I'll keep this short. Most people at that point are like, okay, I'm cool with that. Somebody please define for me right now, what is keep this short? How long is that? For me, it's about 15 minutes. But you've gained permission and you made them feel as if you weren't going to take all day. When you do those long pauses, when you ask them how they're doing, they're like, look, man, I'm not up for this right now. Get to what you're here to talk about. And then at each response, you got to repeat back what they said. Like with Cody, his dollar went further, right? What I say, a lot of people that have bought in that area feel like their dollar have gone further. Good for you. Acknowledge. Now Cody's like, yeah, that's right. That's good for me. I'm smart, right? Guess what? People want to feel like they're smart. They want to feel like their answers are valued. And our job, and it's not manipulation. What this is doing is called building a relationship, building rapport, building trust. You got to get to it. You can't have silly little pauses. One of the things, write down, stop asking, let me ask you a question. It will come out of my mouth sometimes, but every time I do, I hear in my head, just ask the question, because let me ask you a question is a question before the question. So just ask it. People can respect that, right? We're all guilty of it. Just be aware. Don't waste your time with it. Just ask. All right. So I kind of came in late, then started swinging. Just kidding. In a polite way, in a fun way, because here's the deal. There's a lot of money to be made out there. And it doesn't matter if your script is somebody coming through an open house. Do you have it tight? If it's somebody inquiring about a listing, maybe you got an ad from online or some kind of inquiry. Shannon, she came up with this on her own. Her question she would ask buyers if they called off a sign or called off an online source or came into an open house, she'd say, so which home in the area do you own? What does that do? They either own a home in the area or they don't. Because these are the two answers. Oh, I just live around the corner. I was always curious about this property. Like if it's an open house and they come in, hey, welcome. Thanks for stopping in. My name's Shannon. Nice to meet you. So which home in the area do you own? Oh, I'm right across the street. Now we know, are you looking for a family member, a friend? Are you thinking of selling? Right? We kind of got that narrowed down. Or, oh no, I don't own a home in this area. Oh, great. Well, thank you for coming in, right? Now you know this might be a potential buyer. So what area do you live in? Oh, Ohio. Wow. Oh, you got a job transfer. Now we're moving into something. But if you don't have that script tight, you're awkward, you're uncomfortable, you're nervous, right? And you don't want to say the wrong thing. This is like, I've been in this open house for 2 hours and you're the first one to come in. I don't want to screw this up. It's normal. It's real. But where the game is won and lost is practice. As Allen Iverson would say, we up here talking about practice? Yes, we're talking about practice. Why is practice so important?
Joe, we got to get you that clip so you can play that in the training. That's the
We up
best.
here talking about practice, man. So why is practice so important?
Because the worst time to think about what you need to say is the moment you need to say it.
Boom. Much more expensive lesson when you kind of, and I'm gonna, excuse me, when you vomit on your own feet when it counts. Right? If Yvonne and I are role playing and I screw it up, I can go, hold on, time out. Can we run that again? Like, cause I was way off base. I don't even know what I was talking about. Or I could just say, hey, uncle, that was terrible. Can we try this again tomorrow? Right? And then Yvonne could give me some good feedback of like, hey, I really liked your greeting. I really felt good. And then in the middle, I felt like you got lost. Or you seem tense, you seem uncomfortable. And here's the value. If you're practicing, there's two ways you practice in my book. One of them is by yourself where you're internalizing the verbiage. There's a gazillion scripts out there. And like I said at the beginning of the call, if you need help getting a script, coming up with one, crafting one, finding one online, and working with it, call me. You can come into my office. We'll sit right over here on my conference table. We'll go through it together. What I want to see you is successful on purpose, not having successes by chance. So the practice time, the second way is you do it with somebody else or you record yourself. So as goofy as this sounds, I think I shared it last time. I had scripts in 3 places. I had scripts on my desk. They were in front of me. I had them mounted up on the wall so I could see. And anytime I was calling another prospect, I would just change the script. If I was making just sold calls, just sold call was up. If I was calling expired, that script was up, et cetera, et cetera. So the second place is I had them laminated and I put them in my car. And anybody stuck at a light in Las Vegas knows there's 3 to 5 minutes of script practice right there. So you sit there at the light and you go through it and go boom, 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 do it again, do it again, do it again. You do that for a week, week and a half, forget it. You'll have that script dialed. The third place, and this is what makes me a little obsessive, is that after laminating it, I did a little hole punch on it and I threw a little monofilament line or fishing line and I hung it over my shower head in the bathroom. Now, when I was learning scripts, I had some hair. So I had a little bit of time that I could be doing this and studying them. Today, that wouldn't work. Like I'm in and out and, the water hits me, I'm clean, let's go. No, but seriously, it's just really just committing, saying, look, I am going to master this. And Dave Reichert, I want to pull you back on live for a second. You asked a great question, whether it was yesterday or the day before. What was that question about? What do I think is most important?
Which of the 3 do you value the most? Prospecting, presentation, or closing?
Okay. So right now, by a show of hands, prospecting is number 1, presentation is number 2, closing is number 3. You're not going to get a failing grade, but I want, in your opinion, what do you value most? 1, 2, or 3? Hold a number of fingers. Prospecting, closing, prospecting. Come on, Ava. Okay, prospecting. And Patricia, did you put a number up? What was your number, Patricia? Hold it up for us so I can see it.
Sorry, I missed the question. I sent a message and it went to the wrong place.
No problem. What do you value most? Prospecting, presentation, or closing? 1, 2, or 3? Prospecting, presentation, or closing?
Two, I think.
Okay. Hey, look at that. Thank you for taking a swing at it. And Dave Reichert sitting there very, very proud, smiling with his number 2.
Closing, right?
I'm not even sure what Dave's was the other day. I didn't ask him. I just answered it. And my opinion, not that it means anything, because that and, $10.50 will get you a small coffee, or what do they call it? A tall at Starbucks, is number 2, presentation, right? And so by presentation, why is that important? For me, in my mind, when you're more comfortable with presentation, you're going to prospect more often because you know what you're actually going to say when you're doing it. And then second reason on why the presentation is most valuable to me is the natural end to a great presentation is a close, right? So if you have a good presentation all the way through. So yeah, we're talking about scripts, but I'm also talking about presentation. Guess what? Cody Lewis, you and I had a debate a few years ago. Do you remember this? We did. It was very brief, but you're like, yeah, I'm not really into scripting. You were pretty cool about it too. You were like, yeah, I'm pretty solid in this position. And you remember what I asked you?
Yeah, you asked me, when this particular thing happens, what do you say? What do you do?
And then I said, do you always say it that way? Do you always handle it that way? And you're like, yeah. I go, that's a script, right? And so what I want you guys to get is that the script gives you power, gives you freedom, gives you confidence, gives you competency, right? When you call somebody, you have a few seconds to demonstrate that you're worth their time. The worst thing that's happened, I think, is that people have quickly shut people down, shut opportunities down, made decisions, quickly judging. It's just getting faster and faster. I think a few years ago, like attention span, maybe going back a decade, was maybe 20, 30 seconds. They say now it's down to like 5 or 6 seconds, right? You have that amount of time. That's why that scripting in the beginning of any call, the beginning of any meeting is so critical. That's why acknowledging and repeating, because they can go, oh, this is actually a real dialogue, right? So questions, comments, concerns about what we just talked about?
I
Dave.
have a comment
Okay,
about
Patricia, you go first.
prospecting. Because I consider it starts when I pick my clothes in the morning, because any prospect that I meet, the first thing is going to be how I present myself to them, my personal presentation, before I can get into presenting the sale. So
Yep.
it has to start there.
I agree with you. I think everything we do is part of our presentation. And absolutely your attire will be part of it. And yet your attire needs to fit you, meaning you gotta feel comfortable in it, because confidence is part of that. If you are not a suit wearing person and you got a tie on, zipped up tight, and a coat, and you're just very uncomfortable, you're going to send the wrong signal to somebody because they're going to see you're uncomfortable, right? Now, by converse, what is your clientele that you're working with? What are their expectations? If you're dealing with a lot of people in corporate, you better look like you've got a job, a professional job. My clientele tend to be a lot of business owners, right? And so they're cool. Like I've had clients tell me, like, good, looks like you're ready to play golf. And I'm like, always ready to play golf, right? And so that fits for me. All right, Dave, you had a question or a comment?
Not so much a question, but a comment, because when I asked you that question, I was like, I saw a bunch of number ones. I was a number one until we had this conversation. And then you pulled on the string even further that says that if you have your presentation dialed, you can't wait. I'm talking for myself. I can't wait to go give it to somebody. Who am I going to talk to next? So you get fired up for prospecting because you want to give your presentation.
So what I'd like to do is in next month's class, I want to work on the stages of a presentation, right? So we'll be scripting, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you high level overviews and then you're going to build out. So for example, the beginning of a listing presentation, what does that look like? What's the first things you should be covering? What's the next things you should be covering on it? And we'll do the same thing for a buyer presentation, right? And so the reason for that is so you can practice your routine. I had lunch last month with a buddy of mine named Ed Detweiler. And if anybody been in the business any length of time, Ed's been in real estate for, I see Steve shaking his head. You know, Ed, he's OG. He goes back almost as long as you do, Steve. Been in the market a long time. And so I remember Ed putting on a buyer agent class in, I want to say it was like 1998 or so, maybe it was 97. I mean, it was a long time ago. And I'd been in it a couple of years. And Ed had this bulletproof buyer system that he used, and it worked every time. And step one in the buyer presentation was what he called CITO. CITO, come into office. He won every time he got somebody in the office. And so his whole script in talking to somebody, even if they were standing in front of one of his houses, now he would go meet them at the house. It was his listing. They wanted to see it. He called it test ride. But while he was there, he was talking about the importance of them coming into the office. And from there, he had a whole presentation built, but he gave them value reasons why they would do it. And so your objective and the reason for scripting being so important. Anybody else have a bad night's sleep before? Wake up the next day and feel like, oh, man, I really do not want to do this today. I am just not up for it. When you're scripted, you can make your way through that day and have success. When you're not scripted, you're based purely on luck and energy and emotion. When you know what you're going to say, when you're going to say it, you are able to turn on the moment and then turn it off, and you could be tired in an hour or two. I can tell you, I remember when my kids were tiny, little babies, up in the middle of the night, get 3 hours sleep. I knew I had to make my calls. My wife was stay-at-home mom, 2 kids, mortgages, car payments, right? Everybody feel the stress. We've all been there. Maybe some of us are still there. At the end of the day, I was like, I cannot miss my calls because I had a high overhead. I had to figure this thing out. Scripting allowed me, no matter what was going on, good day, bad day, didn't feel like it. If I was sick, it was the same thing. I was listening for a few cues. All right, questions about script. I gave you a lot of the why. We're going to talk about next month on presentation stuff. Repeat and approve, build relationships. Get that acknowledgement, get people comfortable. Any other questions, comments, feedback? All right. Yes, go ahead, Yvonne, unmute. You're not unmuting.
Can
There
I
we go.
also laminate the scripts?
You laminate yours?
No, can I get them so I can laminate them?
Yeah, I'm happy to. You tell me what scripts you want to call, and either I'll pull them up, I'll retrieve them from somewhere, or we'll create one together. Hint, hint, all of Tom Ferry's, I'm sure some of them been rewritten, but Tom Ferry's first original script book, I wrote it. The whole thing, every script. Now, I'm only telling you that because it's a process, it's a formula. That's all it is. And once you know the formula, you plug in the questions. And if you don't like a particular way a question's asked, we just tweak it here and there and make it you. But what I'll tell you is don't get hung up on, well, this doesn't sound like me. And I used to jokingly say, well, what sounds like you is you're broke. So let's not do that. Let's do something that works, right? I'm a much kinder, gentler Joe D these days. So, Cody.
Joe, I have a question for you. So I know that now these written scripts have become so much a part of you that you're not referencing written scripts anymore.
Well, I am. They're just in here.
Yeah, right. So have you noticed that as people's attention spans have shortened, like you've said, have you been making adjustments to your scripts to try to hook them faster? Have you found the need for that?
The biggest thing where you got to catch them is early. That's where they're disconnected. If you can get them early with I know you got a lot going on, so I promise I'll keep this short. Like, people are going to be okay with that. They'll actually pause for a moment and they'll be like, well, that's respectful. It's unlike the last 5 telemarketers that you can hear 15 people in the background behind them, or you can hear baby crying next to them. Those things happen. But like, if you're actually going to get somebody's attention, it's got to be early. Once you get them, you can usually keep them.
So the things you've used in the past to get their attention quick,
Yep.
Those things are still working because you were getting it quick enough that even
Yeah.
though the time has shortened, it's still within the window of their attention span.
And you go fast, like get to it and then let them decide. I mean, some people are going to tell you, look, screw you, not interested, no way, don't ever call me again, whatever. And look, I don't take it personal. And the reason why I don't take it personal is I'm only looking for people who want to buy or sell. And so the faster I can figure that out, the better. Now, the one thing is Cody was not moving on that script. He only been there 5 years. He really liked it, the neighborhood. I'm going to follow the next few questions on the script because the first no you're going to get is called a reflex no. Reflex no. Go to a department store with your wife, or ladies, when you go to a department store and you know you're looking for a blouse to go with whatever outfit or a pair of shoes to go with the new dress, and the salesperson comes up and says, hi, welcome to whatever store you're standing in. Can I help you? Your answer is always, just looking. That's called a reflex no. So Cody, to your point, is we want to get that reflex no out of the way, but we want to hook them quick, get the reflex no, and then expand the conversation. And for lack of a better word, I call it conversational foreplay. We're going to just exchange some niceties, right? Best things you can do is always approve people of the community they live in or what they're thinking about. You know, if somebody's thinking of buying, oh, that's great choice right now. There's a lot of buyers that are nervous, and the smart buyers are the ones that are looking at doing it now. And they're like, well, yeah, I'm pretty smart, so I guess that's going to work, right? Did I help, Cody? I know that was a long answer.
Oh yeah, that answered the question.
Yeah, and where you're going to annoy people is when you're doing a lot of where you don't know what you're going to ask next, where you're thinking, right? When it's just give an acknowledgement, you repeat what they say, acknowledgement, next question, and you make it flow. You know, when I say Cody, I mean, it's a great neighborhood. I'm hearing that from a lot of people that live there. Boom, next question, right? That's conversationally.
So I know we're short on time this time, but maybe we could make a note for next time. One of the things that I personally would appreciate is some skills on when you get something that you run into a situation where you know you don't have a script for that. It's something you hadn't anticipated. I've noticed you, Joe, you have little things you'll do to divert it into where you're comfortable again. And I think that's what a lot of agents struggle with, is that once they get off their scripts, they're hosed. So they are reluctant to go on them.
So the challenge is only 5 or 6 questions you ever need to be asking anybody, right? So one of them is, you know, why? Like what has you curious about doing this? When? Just out of curiosity, like say they're calling off a property for sale or they're thinking of selling. You know, obviously buying a home is a big decision. If I'm off script, I immediately will go to this. You know, obviously this is a big decision. I'm more curious than anything else. What led you to this process? Now, 2 things are happening there. 1, I'm getting them to talk, right? So the tension's off of me. Now, 2, I'm listening again at a deeper level. Like, where are we going with this? So that I can get back into what my next question is. So typically what I want to know is what the motivation is, how soon they're going to do it, right? Those are pretty simple. If we know those things, we know if we got somebody. Cody said 3 or 4 years. Am I going to spend a lot of time trying to convince Cody he should move now? No, that's called motivational speaking, right? I'd rather just go find somebody who's already motivated and go, all right, I'm on my way. Dave, didn't you take a listing this weekend from calling somebody like a just sold around the neighborhood from you?
Yep. Board
And
everybody right at the first.
how long into the conversation did you identify that the people were moving? Like they were going to sell?
Oh, it was when I was done with the preamble.
What was his response?
They actually said, we're glad you called. We saw your sign go up and down so fast. We knew you were the real estate agent for us. So.
And now Dave's off script. He's like, that's not on my script. Ask the next question. So if you were to move, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
Sounds like you guys are thinking of moving. Where are you going to go? Right? Get them talking. How did you pick that area? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Do you have friends in the area? Do you have family there? Have you ever lived there before? Right? Just get them talking. James, I saw you off mute. Did you have a question or a comment?
I wanted to ask, there's a guy online, he does YouTube, he's back east somewhere, his name is Brandon Mulrenan. Have you heard of him? He offers a script book, it's called Reverse Prospecting. There's about maybe 15 or so scripts in there. I wonder if you're familiar with those scripts at all, and do you approve of them?
I'm not familiar with them, but if you can get your hands on one, I'll take a look at it and I'll tell you my opinion on whether or not I think they're worthwhile. There's a lot of trainers out there like Tom Ferry, Mike Ferry, et cetera, et cetera. Those are a couple that just come off the top of my head. But Brian Buffini is one. I mean, there's a ton out there that if you just start looking at, they'll have scripts and they work. I don't necessarily, I wouldn't recommend paying for scripts because there's no magic script. The magic is internalizing it and then doing it over and over and over.
Exactly. They all say pretty much the same questions. You just got to kind of figure out what you would say and make it normal and more rational to how you speak, basically. Yeah.
Your comfort level, your approach. So the one thing I would ask everybody in here is you got to get clear on I don't care if it's 2 or 3 lead gen sources that you're working on. You got to know what they are. And you got to get committed to having those scripts dialed. Like the kind of thing, like if I called Michael Herman at 3 o'clock in the morning and woke him up and I said the sentence before on one of his 3 scripts, he can say the very next sentence, "You're ready." Now, I'm not telling you don't prospect until you get to there. Because it's like parenting. You're never a good parent until you have kids, right? Like you've got to be in the trenches. Like I hear people say, well, we're kind of waiting, until we're ready to be parents. You ain't even ready on the day they show up. I promise you, right? That's getting thrown in the deep end of the pool. So you're going to do your prospecting because you're going to learn the most. You're going to get the best feedback from that. And you're going to know where you screwed up, but understand that's part of the process. There's a ton of opportunity out there. I mean, Dave just shared that, going to take a listing on a just sold. I mean, Dave, what's the commission on that price point?
Stand by. 17,000 is the GCI.
17.
Yes.
Was that worth learning your scripts, making the phone calls and doing the effort? I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. If you do one of those a month, does that change your game? Does that change your life?
Yep.
For some of you, yes, absolutely. In fact, I had lunch with a buddy of mine, Gary Thompson, who I've known I met him like 6 months after I was in the business. And Gary says to me, he says, I remember having lunch with you and you said, if I could just figure out how to sell 2 homes a month, I will be set for life. And he's laughing because once I figured that out, I was like, I really have much more expensive taste than what 2 homes a month is going to cover. I better sell some more. Now, fortunately, today the price point's higher, right? But you got to pick what your niche is. If you're going to make any phone calls, if you're going to do any door knocking, if you're going to hold any open houses, if you're going to get online leads, you got to know where you're going to spend your time. And then you've got to get that script dialed in. And you got to be quick. You got to think of the psychology on the person that's inquiring on that. If you're calling a for sale by owner, that is a completely different prospect than an expired listing. It's completely different from a just sold, completely different from somebody who's in default. How do you approach each one of those? Those are the things that I'm offering to assist you with. But I can't do that blanketly with everybody because it doesn't make sense. If I'm talking about open houses and 9 out of 10 of you don't care about open houses, you guys are tuning me out. I'm not wasting my time. I'd rather help that person get dialed on. Okay. Cool. All right. So we are at just past the top of the hour. Apologies, first of all, for being late coming on. I do not intend to make that a habit. James, I do see your question, so I will answer that in just a moment. For everybody that has tuned in to this point, thank you for taking the time. Please know that I'm available. I'm here. I'll work you into my schedule, but you are going to have to do some work. So you can't just show up and go, Joe, okay, just heal me. No, you've got to show me you're putting in effort. Same thing I tell my kids. I'll help you, but you got to be on the path. I'm not going to help you up and drag your ass down the road. Okay. So you got to get started on it. Means you got to start thinking, you got to come up with some scripts, even if they're terrible. I don't care. it shows me you're putting in the effort. My number one rule for salespeople. Salespeople call me all the time. People refer me, their friends, their family members, everything else. And they always want to meet. They want to take me to lunch. And the irony is I can actually afford lunch. So I don't care about somebody buying me lunch. And the only time I'm going to lunch is usually when I'm trying to get something out of it. So my rule is this. You put in effort, I'll give you everything you need and then some back. If you don't put any effort, you're not going to even get much time from me. And I hope you can understand that being fair, right? James, your question?
Just wanted your email.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat right now. Oh, let's see here.
Joe, while you're putting that in the chat, let me just mention to everybody who's on this call or is watching the replay.
Yes.
One of the reasons that we decided to do this, and we talked about this as the Synergy board, about one of the objectives of this series that Joe is doing, is that this is the safest place you can be to try your scripts, bomb on them, improve them, bomb again, doesn't matter. Like, nobody's going to judge anybody here. And I feel like I'm pretty good at this stuff now in my career, but I'm coming here totally willing to be vulnerable, want to learn. And if everybody else will do that, Synergy is the safest place you can be for practicing these things so that you're not tripping in front of the clients. So come to these presentations of Joe's, come with specific scenarios and what you think is a good script to answer it, and let him thrash it, because I can promise you later that's going to make you a better agent, and it's going to make you you're going to have that 17,000 and you're going to be saying to Dave, yeah, I got mine too, buddy, right? Instead of just him having all the fun.
So Cody, I'm going to give you a prime example. Ray, I believe his last name's Gutierrez. Ray came into the office with the scripts, wanting to go do more with FSBOs. He was having a hard time getting him on the phone. I go, do you have the address? He says, yes. I go, do you have the time to be able to drive and go knock on the door? He goes, yes. I go, get out of my office and come and knock on this door. Let's do it right now. Now, if those of you know Ray is a rather imposing figure. His shoulders sit out about this wide, right? And then he's got his hair pulled back in a ponytail. Super nice guy. I mean, as nice of a guy as you ever meet. But when you're looking through the peephole and you see that, you are not opening that door, right? Unless you've got like a 9 mil in your hand, because you're like, that's a big dude. So what I worked with Ray on is I said, Ray, stand back 3 feet, turn your shoulders to the side, look this way, and start like whistling. That's a lot different than standing in front of your peephole, like, right? That's the kind of stuff that we can work on, but you got to do the work.
Yeah. So come to this ready to engage in it with real stuff. That, don't worry if it sounds stupid or you don't know what to say. Give it a whirl. It's the best way to learn. And most people don't know how to practice scripts. They don't know how to role play, but this is a place where you can, and nobody's going to judge you for it.
And I want to acknowledge those of you that did actually ask a question today. Look at this, like, this is the opportunity, as Cody's saying, this is the opportunity to kind of get the inside scoop on whatever you're struggling with, whatever you're dealing with. So next month when I show up, yes, I will have an agenda of what I want to teach you, but what I would love to do more than anything else is to work on what you're facing. That's so much more powerful, not only for you, but for everybody. So come with some actual examples. So some things to work on in role play. I'm going to give you a little homework. I want you to role play calling somebody who's in their late 70s to early 80s. And I want you to think about, number one, what your greeting is versus somebody that you call that sounds like in their 30s, 40s, or maybe 50s. I guarantee you there's 2 different greetings. Verse number 1 in cadence, and number 2 in the name you use. If I call Dave and I hear his voice, which is a little youthful, not very, but a little, I'm going to say, hey, I'm looking for Dave. But if I call Dave's like stepdad, who's 81, I'm going to say, I'm calling for Mr. McCurry. Right? Now, you're going to say, well, how do you know? By their hello. If they answer the phone, hello, I'm not going to be Joe D from New York, slick selling this, that, and the other, because that guard up, defense. So that's one of the role plays that I want you to look at. Okay. Then I want you to start thinking of different personality types that you can role play. So if Cody and I were role playing, I might say, Cody, I'm really struggling with drivers. Can you take on a driver mentality, which is short answers, bottom line, get to the point, right? And think through that lens. So when I'm going through, am I communicating to that person in that fashion? And I'm telling you guys, you're going to get all that pretty much from your hello. Now, some of them may not be, but I could tell you that promoters and drivers will stand out in seconds. They're the easiest two to identify. So now you're just looking at, you're either got analytical or you're amiables, right? Those are the last two quadrants. All right, Cody, anything else? Good wrap up. The summit. Did we already talk about that?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we covered it, so we're good there. And the social event at Carrie's house on April 19th. It's just a get together. She's feeding us tacos, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
I like tacos.
One other thing, Realtor Toolbox on the 20th.
Okay.
And Realtor Toolbox on the 20th.
All right.
Thanks, Joe. Next month. I'm bringing stuff to the table, so
Please,
I
please.
can't
Well,
wait.
and we're going to do this live at the summit. Like
Yes,
this
we
is gonna
are.
be 6-shooter. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go.
Yes,
I
we are.
might have to practice.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. That was great.
Glad it was useful. Take
Thank
care.
you.